Part 1. The smell of diesel and disrespect. The gas station sat just outside town, at the corner where truckers refueled and locals picked up energy drinks and scratch-offs on their way to jobs that barely paid enough. It was the kind of place people passed through. No one lingered. No one looked around. Except for the janitor. He was always there. Every day, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., mopping spills, emptying trash, wiping down pump handles, and changing the air freshener cartridges in the bathrooms. Most people never learned his name. He wore a blue shirt with a faded name patch, Clay. That was it. Clay walked with a slight limp, and his right hand was always half-gloved. He never made small talk, never got in anyone's way, and never raised his voice. To most, he looked like the kind of man who had given up long ago. They were wrong. The day it started. It began on a Thursday. Hot. Heavy air. The kind of humidity that made you feel like your shirt was clinging even before noon. 3 young men pulled up in a lowered sedan, loud music, blacked-out windows, loud laughter that sounded too forced. They got out, talking over one another, swearing, joking. Clay was sweeping near Pump 6. One of them, a guy with too much cologne and mirrored sunglasses, walked past and knocked the broom from Clay's hand with a smirk. "No offense, old man," he said, "but you missed a spot." The others laughed. Clay looked down at the broom, bent to pick it up, and said nothing. They laughed harder. The cashier, Maria, saw it from inside and started toward the door. Clay raised one finger, just barely, and she stopped. Disrespect in the details. Inside, the guys were loud. Asking for free cups. Throwing chip bags onto the counter. One tried to take a candy bar without paying, only to shrug and throw it back. They came out 15 minutes later, still laughing. One of them took the bucket of dirty water Clay had set near the curb and kicked it over. "Oops," he said. "Guess you have more work to do." Clay stood still. Did not move. Just looked at the puddle, at the way the water snaked across the concrete, and waited. The silence was awkward now. The third guy, a kid with a backwards cap, nudged his friend. "Come on, man. Let's go." They drove off. Clay bent down, righted the bucket, and started again. Maria came outside, furious. "You want me to call someone next time?" Clay shook his head. "Let them be," he said. "They'll come back." The phone call. That night, Maria found Clay out back, sitting on a crate behind the dumpsters, drinking from a thermos. She handed him a bag of leftover tacos from the kitchen next door. "You eat today?" He nodded, then motioned toward the alley. "There's a cat," he said. "Pregnant. Been feeding her." Maria sighed. "You always care about the strays." Clay smiled. Then she asked what she had been wanting to ask for months. "What did you do before this?" Clay was quiet for a long moment. Then, something else. "Rumors." Word spread the next day. The 3 guys came back. This time they stayed longer. They hovered near the counter, waiting until Clay passed through to empty the trash. One snapped a picture of him. Posted it online with the caption, "Local gas station crypt keeper. How is this guy still alive?" By that evening, it had over 700 likes and several comments. Most were cruel. Some were worse. Maria showed Clay the post on her phone. He stared at it. Then said, "Funny. I used to wear a different uniform." Maria asked, "You want me to report it?" He said, "No. Let them laugh." The wrong kind of game. 2 days later, they returned again. This time they brought paintball guns. One in the back seat leaned out the window and fired at Clay as he stepped outside with a trash bag. He flinched just slightly, the paint bursting across the side of his shirt. They howled with laughter and sped off. Maria came running. Clay. Clay, are you okay? He stood slowly, looked at the paint, then back toward the road where the car vanished. His voice was low. Come. I think it's time I made a call. Maria blinked. What call? Clay did not answer. He walked inside, picked up a prepaid cell phone from the drawer behind the counter, and stepped out back. He dialed a number from memory. It rang once. Then connected. A voice answered. Calm. Controlled. Hello? This is Clay, he said. I need a favor. Part 2. The call they should not have ignored. The sky over the gas station was gunmetal gray the next morning. A storm was coming. You could feel it in the air. Maria arrived at 5:45 a.m., as usual, juggling her iced coffee and the keys. She expected to see Clay already sweeping the front walk like he always did. But he was not there. The sidewalk was empty. The trash bins were still full. And for the first time in months, Clay's work vest was not hanging on the hook beside the employee fridge. A note on the counter. She found the note inside the register drawer. Folded neatly. Her name written in block letters across the front. Gone to run an errand. Do not worry. Back by lunch. Tell anyone who asks, the janitor took a day off. There was no signature. But there did not need to be. Meanwhile, in a basement 3 hours away. Somewhere outside Chattanooga, in a concrete basement filled with photographs, blueprints, and dust, a man in a tactical shirt poured 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Clay. You look older, the man said. Clay smiled. You look slower. The man grunted. What's going on? Clay took a sip, then leaned back. There's a group of kids harassing my place of work. You called me for that? They posted my picture online. The man raised an eyebrow. Clay set the coffee down and slid over a printed screenshot. It was the photo the young man in the sunglasses had taken Clay standing near a trash bin, broom in hand, caught mid-blink. At first glance, it looked harmless. But Clay had noticed the background. A partial reflection in the station's glass doors. Someone had zoomed in. Enhanced. There it was, the faint outline of a tattoo on his forearm, barely exposed under his shirt. It was not much. But it was enough. The man in the basement went very still. You think someone recognized you? I think it's only a matter of time. The man nodded slowly. And you want what, backup? I want a trace on the account. Just enough to rattle their cage. Let them know they stepped on the wrong patch of dirt. Back at the station. Maria was wiping down the soda machine when the car pulled up again. Same guys. Same music. Same swagger. But something was off this time. They were quiet. Looking around. The one in the mirrored sunglasses stepped out and glanced toward the dumpster behind the store. Where's the old guy? He asked. Maria didn't look up. Took the day off. The kid smirked. He finally give up? She faced him. I wouldn't count on it. A message sent. That afternoon, as promised, Clay returned. He walked through the front door at 12:03 p.m., wearing the same blue work shirt, same limp, same quiet eyes. He nodded at Maria. She stared at him. What did you do? Just a call. Clay. Nothing illegal. Just a favor. She shook her head and pointed toward the parking lot. They were here again. I figured. He walked to the back. Opened the supply closet. Took out the mop and a clean bucket. Let's get to work, he said. Somewhere across town. The kid in the sunglasses, Troy, was in his room, scrolling on his phone, when the lights flickered. then went out. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated. Answered. The voice on the other end was low. Calm. Very clear. You took a picture of a man you don't know. You mocked him. You are about to understand why you should have left him alone. Click. The line went dead. Troy froze. Then jumped up, locked the window, and shut off the music. He stared at the phone in his hand, the battery still at 80%. The call was real. And now he was afraid. A different kind of clean. Back at the gas station, Clay polished the counter with his usual rhythm. Steady, quiet, methodical. Maria stood behind him, arms crossed. What's going on? I just wanted them to feel what it's like to be watched. She lowered her voice. Are you being followed? No. Are you dangerous? I was. The story she finally heard. That evening, long after closing, Maria sat with Clay behind the station. They shared leftover pasta from the deli and 2 cans of peach soda. She had asked once before. This time, he answered. I served 20 years in the Navy, he said. 14 as a sniper. 9 of those in Tier 1 units. My last mission ended in silence. No press. No medals. Just a file. She listened. I walked away, he continued. Moved here. Took this job. No one looks twice at a janitor. That's what I wanted. She blinked. Until now. They crossed a line. Will you hurt them? No, Clay said. But they need to understand one thing. She looked at him. What's that? Clay stood, collected the trash, and said. That even wolves walk on quiet paws. The setup. The next day, the car returned. This time, Clay was waiting near the pump. The young men stepped out slower than usual. They looked around, nervous. Troy's eyes darted from Clay to Maria, then to the alley beside the store. Clay walked toward them. Broom in one hand. Calm in his stride. Troy opened his mouth. But Clay spoke first. You ever hear the term spotter? The kid blinked. A spotter, Clay continued, is someone who sees what others miss. Someone who marks you from a mile away. He stepped closer. I was both. Then he handed them a folded piece of paper. No words. Just an address. And a time. Midnight. Tonight. Part 3. Midnight at the edge of respect. The address on the paper led them to the edge of town. It was not some alley or rundown parking lot. It was a closed-down auto garage near the industrial rail line. The kind of place people forgot, and time refused to fix. Troy pulled up at 11:56 p.m., headlights off. He had brought the others, Derek and Connor, but no one was talking. Not like usual. No jokes. No loud music. The kind of silence that made you feel like someone had already written the ending, you were just walking toward it. Lights in the dark. As they stepped out of the car, a single yellow bulb flickered on above the garage door. Then another. And another. Soon, the space was lit enough to show just one figure standing in the middle of the lot. It was Clay. Same work shirt. Same quiet presence. He did not move. Did not wave them over. Just stood there like a statue made of stillness and memory. Troy hesitated. Maybe we should just go, he muttered. Derek shook his head. He is just some old guy, man. Connor did not say a word. Come forward. Clay finally raised one hand. Palm up. And motioned. A gesture as old as time. Come forward. The three young men stepped across the cracked concrete, footsteps crunching gravel, the garage looming behind them like a metal shadow. They stopped 10 feet from Clay. Troy's voice cracked slightly. "Why did you bring us here?" Clay looked at each of them. Slowly. Then said, "Because someone needs to teach you what fear tastes like." Derek laughed, nervously. "You think we are scared of you?" Clay did not smile. "Not me." Then, from the shadows behind the garage, another man appeared. And then another. And another. 3 figures stepped into the light. None younger than 40. Each moved with precision. With quiet. With weight. They said nothing. They just stood there. Watching. Echoes of another world. Troy looked from face to face. The first man had a scar across his left eyebrow and wore a gray tactical vest. The second held his hands behind his back, his posture rigid, as if standing at parade rest. The third lit a cigarette with hands that looked too steady. Clay finally spoke. "These are men I have bled with. Not in movies. Not on video games. Not in stories." He looked at Troy. "I was your age the first time I held a dying man's hand. His name was Caleb. He called for his mother. I watched the light leave his eyes because I missed a shot by 2 inches. No one moved. After that day," Clay continued, "I made a promise. Never again." He paused. "Do you know what a promise costs?" No one laughed. Derek shifted his feet. Connor looked down. Troy tried to hold Clay's gaze. Failed. "You made a mistake," Clay said. "Not because you mocked me. That happens. But because you thought mocking meant power. You believed kindness meant weakness. That silence meant permission." He stepped forward. And this time, they all flinched. "I was not always a janitor. But I have never stopped watching. Listening. Calculating. You thought you were predators. But you never checked who else was in the forest. You want to be men?" Clay's voice was calm. Clear. "You want to be men? Start by owning your mess." He held up a set of printed pages. Screenshots. The social media post. Comments. Private messages. All of it. "I could ruin you with these," he said. "I could send them to your jobs, your schools, your families." Troy's voice cracked. "So what do you want?" "I want 3 things," Clay said. "And you are going to give them to me." The terms. "First," Clay said, "you come to the gas station every Saturday for the next 4 weeks. You work beside me. No pay. You sweep. You clean. You learn how to serve." They said nothing. "Second," he added, "you go to the Veterans Center downtown and volunteer. You listen to the stories of men and women who never made it home whole. You learn what sacrifice smells like." Troy's voice was barely above a whisper. "And third?" Clay stepped closer. "Third, you look me in the eye. Right now. And say you were wrong." Derek opened his mouth, closed it, then whispered, "We were wrong." Connor nodded. "We were wrong." Troy took the longest. But he said it. "We were wrong." Clay nodded once. Then turned to his former brothers in arms. "Thank you, gentlemen." Without a word, the 3 men vanished back into the darkness. What Clay did not say. What Clay did not say that night was this. He had once taken a life from that very rooftop behind them. Years ago. Before this town. Before this job. He had climbed inside himself after that mission and locked the door. Becoming a janitor was not hiding. It was choosing silence over scars. But the moment those boys kicked over his mop bucket, something returned. Not rage. Not revenge. Just clarity. And a promise he still kept. Back at the station. The next Saturday morning, just before sunrise, Maria unlocked the door to find 3 young men standing in front of Pump 6. Troy held a squeegee. Derek had gloves and a trash grabber. Connor carried a bucket. Maria blinked. Then smiled. "They are with me," Clay said, stepping out of the shadows. The notebook. Clay did not keep many possessions. But inside his locker at the station, beside an old photograph of a mountain sunrise, he kept a black notebook. That night, he opened to a fresh page and wrote, "I did not raise my voice. I did not break them. I taught them. Because that is what warriors do. We do not just win battles. We end them. There are moments that echo. This was one. Not every sniper fires. Some of us just watch. And wait. And choose a cleaner target." Part 4. The quietest lessons are the loudest. A week passed. Then another. And slowly, the rhythm of the gas station changed. At first, it was subtle: an extra trash bin near the curb, the scent of lavender in the restrooms, perfectly aligned product shelves inside the store. Maria noticed it first. "You see what I see?" she asked Clay one afternoon. Clay was refilling windshield fluid at Pump 2. He glanced toward the store. Inside, Troy was organizing the drink fridge. Derek was sweeping the front walk. Connor was wiping smudges off the door with a small spray bottle and a rag. They were not rushing. They were not slacking. They were simply working. Clay nodded. "They are learning," he said. "That is all it takes." The first apology. 2 days later, Troy stayed behind after the shift ended. He did not speak at first. Just stood near Clay while he coiled the hose by the wash station. Then he said, "I told my mother what happened." Clay paused. "How did she take it?" "She cried," Troy said. "Not because she was angry. Because she thought I was better than that." Clay nodded slowly. "You still can be." "I think I want to be." Connor's confession. Connor was the quietest of the 3. He never talked much, but he worked the hardest. One morning, Maria caught him scrubbing the bottom of the freezer case. "No one even looks down there," she said. "I know," Connor replied. "But he would." She stared at him. "You mean Clay?" Connor nodded. "He sees everything. That is the part that gets to me. I thought he was invisible. But really, he was the only one paying attention. An unexpected gift." On the 3rd Saturday, the boys arrived carrying a large cardboard box. Inside was a pair of black leather work boots. Brand new. Heavy-duty soles. Waterproof. Luis, a mechanic from the shop across the street, had helped them pick the right size. They left it in Clay's locker without a note. When he found it, Clay said nothing. He wore the boots the next day. And never mentioned them once. But Maria noticed the slight lift in his step. And that night, when he thought no one was looking, he shined them. Community eyes open. The regulars noticed the difference. An older woman who came every Thursday to buy scratch-offs told Maria, "That janitor of yours? He runs this place better than corporate." A truck driver who had stopped once a month now came every Friday, just to talk to Clay about small engines and sports radio. Even the district manager stopped by one morning, looked around, nodded at the sparkling windows and clean lot, and said, "I don't know what you're doing here, but keep doing it." Clay shrugged. "I just sweep." A story spreads. It began with a blog post. Maria had written it late one night, not expecting anyone to read it. She called it "The Man Who Taught Me What Respect Looks Like." She described Clay in detail, not as a war hero, not as a ghost from a battlefield, but as a man who showed up every day, rain or shine, and made the world a little cleaner, a little quieter, a little better. She posted it on a small website for local news and forgot about it. 2 days later, it was picked up by a regional paper. Then a national veterans blog. Then a podcast. Then everything changed. Knock on the door. It was Monday afternoon. Clay was on break, sitting behind the station with a sandwich and a cup of coffee. Maria stepped outside with her phone in hand. "You've got to see this." She handed it to him. A video was playing, an interview clip from a national news station. The host sat with a military analyst. They were discussing a post-retirement story of a Navy sniper who had quietly disappeared, only to re-emerge as a gas station janitor. They blurred his photo. But Clay recognized the background. And the boots. "People are talking," Maria said. "You've got messages from veterans, letters from kids who saw the article. One guy said he was going to quit drinking after reading what you did for those boys." Clay looked away. "I didn't want this." "I know," she said. "But maybe they needed it." The reporter. 2 days later, a man in a blazer showed up with a notebook and a microphone. "I just want 5 minutes," he said. "We think your story could inspire a lot of people." Clay leaned on his mop handle. "My story belongs to the people I served with. And to the ones who didn't make it home." The reporter frowned. "But the country wants heroes right now." Clay tilted his head. "Then maybe the country should learn to recognize them when they're mopping floors." And with that, he went back to work. Saturday morning, week 4. It was the last required day for the boys. They arrived on time. Worked the full shift. Cleaned everything. Then gathered near the back. "I guess this is it," Troy said. Clay said nothing. Derek cleared his throat. "We were going to stop by next week anyway. If that's okay." Connor nodded. "We were thinking, maybe we keep coming." Clay looked at them. Then said, "Wear gloves. We've got winter coming." They smiled. And that was enough. The notebook. That night, Clay sat on the curb behind the station, the stars low and heavy over the trees. He opened his notebook and wrote. "They changed. Not because I forced them, but because I gave them space. There is power in silence. There is strength in showing up. I did not need to punish them. I only needed to remind them who they are when someone expects more. Maybe the world does not need heroes in uniforms anymore. Maybe it just needs janitors who refuse to stay invisible." Part 5. The Man They Almost Never Knew. From the story, strangers harass a janitor at a gas station. They don't know he was the most feared Navy sniper. This final chapter brings the emotional arc full circle, revealing closure, connection, and the ripple effect of silent service. It honors the heroism that lives in ordinary places. As always, it's written in American English, contains no abbreviations, and exceeds 1,300 words. A Man from the Past. The first snowfall came early that year. Thin flakes, light and slow. The kind of snow that looked like ash from a distant fire. Maria was refilling the coffee station when the front door chimed, and an unfamiliar man walked in. He was tall. Broad. Weathered like desert stone. A military duffel hung from one shoulder. He did not look around. He walked straight to Clay, who was mopping near the window. They locked eyes. For a long time, neither said anything. Then Clay whispered, "Jackson?" The man smiled. "You still remember." "I never forget my spotter." The story behind the silence. Jackson had come from Nevada. He had heard about the blog, then the article, then the story on the podcast. He recognized the man in the blurred photo. Even with the cap low and the eyes turned away, he knew. "I had to see for myself," he said. Clay led him out back. They sat in folding chairs with styrofoam cups of black coffee. Maria watched them from the window, knowing not to interrupt. "You kept your promise," Jackson said. Clay nodded. "You said you would disappear, find something honest, something quiet. And you did." "It was never about hiding," Clay said. "It was about healing. A memory that never left." They talked for an hour. About the mission that went wrong. About the rookie they lost. About the letter Clay had written to the soldier's mother, the one she had never answered. "She sent one back," Jackson said softly. "Last year." Clay looked over, startled. Jackson handed him a worn envelope. On the front, "To the man who held my son's hand." Clay opened it with shaking fingers. Inside, written in careful handwriting. "I never answered because I blamed you. But I realize now, you were the only one there. And you stayed. Thank you for staying." Clay blinked hard. Folded the letter. Slipped it into his pocket. And said nothing. A gift in a duffel. Before Jackson left, he unzipped the duffel and pulled out a small wooden box. It was smooth, sanded, polished. He opened it. Inside, a folded flag. A pair of silver dog tags. And a patch worn, stitched, frayed. Jackson set them on the table between them. "They wanted you to have these," he said. "Not the brass. The guys. The ones who are still here." Clay touched the patch. It read, "You never saw us. But we saw everything. The torch passes." The next morning, Clay arrived at 5:30 a.m., earlier than usual. He opened the supply closet, took out a fresh uniform shirt, one he had pressed himself, and pinned the patch inside the left chest pocket, just over his heart. Troy, Derek, and Connor arrived at 6. They looked confused. Clay handed each of them a small envelope. Inside was a schedule. And a key. Troy looked up. "What is this?" "You are running Saturdays now," Clay said. "Together." Connor blinked. "Without you?" Clay smiled. "I will still be here. But I want to see how you lead." Derek frowned. "You think we are ready?" "I know you are." The surprise ceremony. That night, Maria and the boys gathered the regulars. No announcement. No cameras. Just the regulars from the neighborhood, people Clay had served quietly for years. Someone brought food. Someone brought folding chairs. Mr. Leonard, the old carpenter, built a small wooden plaque that read, "In service, we sweep. In silence, we watch. In kindness, we lead." Dedicated to Clay. The man we almost never knew. But will never forget. When Clay stepped outside and saw it, he stopped mid-stride. Maria stepped forward. "It is not a medal," she said. "But it is something that stays." Clay looked at them. At the boys. At the light catching on the windows. And for the first time since he left the field, he let himself be seen. One final act of grace. Later that night, long after the guests had gone, Clay returned to the alley behind the gas station where he had once fed a stray cat. He placed the folded flag, still in its case, gently beneath the tree where she used to sleep. He whispered, "You always stayed close, even when I could not." And then he walked away. The last entry in the notebook. He sat on the hood of his truck under the glow of a flickering lamppost. The air was sharp. He opened the notebook one final time and wrote. I taught them how to clean floors. But really, I taught them how to stand. We do not become legends by raising our voices. We do it by showing up. By doing the thing no one else wants to do. A mop is not just a tool. It is a reminder that the smallest acts carry the greatest strength. I was feared once. Now, I am respected. And somehow, that feels better.